What's up guys, Jimmy here, and today I want to give you guys an update regarding the video that I made yesterday. So many of you guys have already commented on that, my Capcom Cup 11 expectations and the weird way Capcom is doing content. If you haven't really watched that video, you should probably watch it up here. I can probably link it up here. Check that out first before you see this one, because there's going to be a bunch of explanations for things that I've already discussed that are quite interesting. So some of you guys have, even in the comments, suggested that Monster Hunter Wilds could be responsible, or at least partially responsible, for the weird way Capcom is doing content in Street Fighter 6 compared to Street Fighter 4 and 5. So far I haven't really considered this angle much, because I thought, why is this so special? I mean, obviously Capcom has Resident Evil to worry about, Monster Hunter to worry about, a bunch of other projects in the making while they're working on Street Fighter. This has never been any different. In Street Fighter 4 and 5, obviously Capcom had multiple projects to deal with at the same time. So what's different now? So yeah, as a result, I didn't really consider this argument to be valid for a while, but the more I looked into Monster Hunter Wilds and a lot of different things that are lining up between Street Fighter and Monster Hunter, the more everything actually makes sense. Now, like, I've been wondering for so long about Street Fighter and the really weird way Street Fighter 6 is doing content. I should have seen this one earlier, to be honest. I should have discussed this earlier if I had looked into it a little bit earlier. So yeah, thank you so much for providing so much info on this and for pointing me in the right direction. So let's talk about that. I think the first thing that we should consider when asking ourselves if Capcom would actually take internal resources from Street Fighter away and reallocate them for Monster Hunter is commercial success. I mean, if Monster Hunter is a lot more successful than Street Fighter, then this makes total sense. And spoiler alert, yes it is. Capcom has only sold Street Fighter 6 is highly successful, by the way, but it's just not comparable to Monster Hunter. Street Fighter 6 sold about 4 million copies within a year, which is great for the series, but Monster Hunter Wilds sold 8 million copies within 3 days. So yeah, does it make sense for Capcom to absolutely make sure Monster Hunter Wilds gets as much or as many resources as possible? Yes, just from that alone, you know, okay, Capcom should be highly motivated to do whatever it takes to make sure Monster Hunter is successful. But just because Monster Hunter Wilds is highly successful does not mean that Street Fighter 6 has to suffer as a result. So what is different between back in Street Fighter 4 and 5 days and now with Street Fighter 6? Well, it turns out Street Fighter 4 and 5 were not developed on an internal engine. Capcom nowadays uses the RE engine for both Monster Hunter Wilds and Street Fighter 6. Back in the days, it was not like that. So when Street Fighter 5 came along and they wanted to have work done but didn't have the internal capacity to work on that, what they could do was simply outsource the work, get other people to develop it, because the Unreal Engine, a lot of people can develop on it, a lot of people have knowledge on it, so you can just outsource the work. With the RE engine, that is actually impossible. A lot of people wanted the RE engine to be used for Street Fighter 6 because we had a suspicion the Unreal Engine was causing a lot of problems within Street Fighter 5, and when Street Fighter 6 came along, a lot of problems were solved, and we were happy in general about the usage of, well, their own internal engine. But I never really considered the downside. So now that you only have your own engine to work with, you have to have your own developers. You cannot outsource anything anymore. So when Street Fighter 6 was released, they probably reallocated a lot of the resources for that game for Monster Hunter Wilds to make sure that the release was going to go smooth as well. Now, Capcom never officially talked about this, obviously. They wouldn't want you to know that something like that was going on, and it is pure speculation at this point, but the more you look into it, the more likely it is this is actually happening, because in 2018, Ono left Capcom, right? And he was in charge of the fighting game division. So who's in charge right now? So this is a really interesting question, because the answer is actually the Monster Hunter producer, Ryozo Tsujimoto. So he is actually in charge of both Monster Hunter and Street Fighter. So obviously it would not be difficult at all internally to do all of this. It makes perfect sense to reallocate exactly like that. Another point that I found interesting when researching this topic is Capcom has not released any major title this fiscal year. So this year it'll actually end on March 31st for Capcom. This is the deadline for the fiscal year. And if they hadn't released Monster Hunter Wilds, they wouldn't have had any major title the entire fiscal year, because Street Fighter 6 was in the previous one, so there would have been nothing to share effectively. That's not a good look for shareholders, so obviously they had even more pressure to release Monster Hunter Wilds, well, on time, right before the end of the fiscal year to get those sales up. So keeping that in mind, reallocating some resources from Street Fighter away makes perfect sense. The last thing I want to talk about today is about the ransomware attack that happened for Capcom in 2022. This is something I almost forgot about, but it really indicated a lot of the things that are happening right now and gives us a clue for how Capcom is seemingly preparing to handle Street Fighter in the future. Now, the dates didn't actually match up properly. A lot of stuff was moved back, but that's not a big deal. Like, take a look at Monster Hunter 6, aka Monster Hunter Wilds. Capcom clearly had plans to release some kind of expansion to Street Fighter 6. Here it's called Super Street Fighter 6, 2 quarters after the release of Monster Hunter Wilds. So I think this is a great indication for what to expect in the future. I think Capcom, now that they successfully released Monster Hunter Wilds, they can now reallocate a lot of resources from Monster Hunter back to Street Fighter to develop new stuff there. At least I'm hopeful at this point this is actually happening, because previously I didn't really see this connection. I think the connection is pretty obvious that the Monster Hunter team and Street Fighter team, they're really sharing resources. I hope in the future Capcom can just have enough own developers to not have this problem to begin with, that they have to share. Hopefully, we'll see about that, I guess. But yeah, I mean, at this point, at least now we have a solid explanation for what's going on. Why is Capcom doing content so weird for Street Fighter 6? And this makes me hopeful. I mean, it's a bit weird and actually kind of bad to know that nobody was developing Street Fighter 6 for a while, or almost nobody. A lot of people were probably working on Monster Hunter Wilds, but it's good to know that they're probably working on it right now. So fingers crossed, hopefully we'll finally see some updates within the next couple of months. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below any and all thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you guys soon.